What's up guys, welcome to Wasted Space, and we're back in Space Engineers, and having done that MPB video recently, and a lot of you guys on that video rightly pointed out that while it was fine on a flat surface, it was never going to be that practical on a planet. And so I decided that rather than try and dive in and make something really complex right off the bat, I'd do a little bit of messing around and experimenting with exactly what's possible as far as wheels are concerned in Space Engineers and wheeled vehicles. So today's one of those slightly different videos that I do from time to time where we're looking at a few different versions of experiments, and in this case with one final variant that I was kind of pleased with. So jumping straight in, we're actually going to begin with the variant I'm kind of pleased with, which is what we've got in front of me here. This doesn't have a massive purpose other than to test the off-road functionality that is capable at the moment in Space Engineers. So while it does have some cargo on it and a couple of guns and an ore detector and a couple of passenger seats on the back here, that's all really just for show. The real deal was trying to get things like ground clearance sorted. So if you come down under here, you can see that I've done my very best to give us maximum ground clearance. And part of the problem with ground clearance in Space Engineers, it turns out, is how the wheels mount. They like to mount halfway down this block here, so you end up with this sort of middle of the road position. But anyway, that's enough talking about what its failings are. Let me show you it in action. So what I've downloaded off a fella called Asiero Colotti, I believe, I hope I haven't butchered your name too badly, is a very, very cool spherical asteroid that is exactly the right size to have a spherical gravity generator put in the middle of it. And so the end result is some nice off-road terrain for you to go driving around. And as you can see, this thing actually sort of handles reasonably well. And I've built into it a few options to help with that. So if we go into here and turn the UI on, first thing we have is the ability to turn off the rear wheel steering. So in some circumstances, the rear wheel steering gets in the way. So you have the ability on the hotbar just to turn that on and off. And as you can see, it still drives absolutely fine without it. But it will turn considerably sharper with it, because I've played around with the wheel settings and I think I've got a handle on exactly how they work now. The other thing you've got under here is the ability to turn off some of the mass. Some of the mass on this ship is essentially fake, I would call it. There is 5 or 4 blocks in the very center of the ship that helps keep it stable. But again, at times when you're climbing really steep hills, you might want to turn that off. So that's on 1, and that will make the entire craft a lot more floaty, as you can see, but it also, at times, helps you get up the steeper hills. But I'm going to turn that back on again because I find it handles generally better with it turned on like it is. And then finally, we actually have the ability to turn off the propulsion to the rear wheels. Now, this might seem weird, but actually, it seems that Space Engineers prefers front-wheel drive if given the opportunity. Obviously, four-wheel drive is better, trying not to fall into this hole there, but two-wheel drive is, if you're going to go with that, front-wheel drive is the way to go. But anyway, you've seen this drive around on some off-road terrain, get the idea that, yeah, it handles a little bit well. It does have one flaw, which is that, obviously, with the wheels spread out as far as they are, you have to go over lumps like that relatively quickly. Otherwise, you get beached in the middle. And I have got some other designs that were designed to sort of fix that, but we'll jump up and have a look at those in a second. So now I should probably just stop driving around. I really recommend you go and download the Workshop World. I will put it up as always. It is remarkably good fun just to go off-roading in Space Engineers. So yeah, let me stop this thing, leave it where it is. It will roll a little bit because of course we're on a hill, as you can see by the gravity on the left hand side. The spherical gravity generator does mean that you've got hills and troughs and things to climb up. But I did set up, let me leave that, a couple of other things. So we come up here, this is the platform upon which I built everything. So this is the prototyping, and you'll see bits of this from the time-lapse, and these are the various variants I've ended up with fails and all sorts of other things in there. But this platform's not particularly interesting. The interesting one is the one up here, where I've set up a couple of other tests for the remaining vehicles that I came up with. And yeah, just as a sort of way of seeing exactly what these vehicles can handle. So if we jump up the top here, you can see we've got that vehicle laid out, and excuse me, ironic that that would happen there, because I've been out of the blue. This was all inspired, this whole trailer business and some of the vehicle business was inspired by watching Mr. Bipolar Prophet, who has a farming simulator channel, which is completely off topic for the sort of thing we're doing, but you guys should check him out because he is the reason why I'm here backing up to a trailer, and I can promise you, sir, I am even worse at reversing than you are. But the idea here is I've actually put a hitch on the back of here in the form of a detached rotor, and what we're going to do is try and reverse this thing back over it, just so. So there we go, that's just about right, that looks lined up. Now unfortunately, for some reason I did it this way round, so I put the rotor part on our main ship and the rotor itself on the trailer, so you have to get out and go into the trailer to connect everything up. But if we hit attach on there and increase the displacement, which pushes the front wheels back down again, you can see that this is now all hooked up quite nicely. We can jump in here, turn off that rotor because it automatically, oh no, it has left itself off, good. And from in here we can now take the trailer for a spin as well. And enjoyably, this functions like you would expect a trailer to. So if we stop and try and reverse, you have to reverse the, in fact this is one of the scenarios where turning off the rear wheel steering really helps. You have to reverse the wrong way to get the trailer to go where you want to. So like reversing a trailer properly, you have to sort of kind of turn against the movement. Anyone who's driven with a trailer on the back will know what I'm talking about. But I thought it was interesting that when you put the wheels together like this, despite how slightly ropey Space Engineers physics can be, this bit of it actually worked perfectly. You know, it works exactly like you would expect a trailer to. So, you know, this is absolutely irrelevant. In the end, it's got a bit of cargo in it. I was just messing around with concepts and ideas more than anything else. But even with the trailer on the back, as you can see, the whole thing handles quite nicely. So let's leave that where it is, and I can show you a couple of demonstrations as to, first of all, this assault course, and second of all, some of the other variants, some of the other things I tried to do. So the most successful, excuse me, the most successful other variant were these things, and they are hideously unstable. And apparently I've got two of exactly the same version here, but these things basically were designed to go up pretty much any hill you can think of. So let me just jump in and turn off the handbrakes. They're on to stop them from rolling around. As you can imagine, this thing, it actually has a rotor in the middle as well to help it articulate. I was trying to steal an idea from some pickup trucks. Certain pickup trucks actually use this twist cab approach to give them better suspension, I think, is the idea. Slightly smoother, more comfortable ride when over harsh terrain. But what it also does is enable the front end of it to tilt at a different angle to the rear end of it while keeping the wheels on the ground. So you can see that the front went over there and then the rear goes over it. So it kind of works. It has a big problem, like the other one, that it gets beached. The centre section of it, while it will go up these hills lovely, it then gets stuck there. So you can see it essentially got itself beached on the middle bit. Which then led me to try that in its most hilarious variant. As you can see, it's known as unstable. And I shortened the entire thing down, and you can probably guess what this is going to do. It's hilariously funny, but it's also like the least stable craft you have ever seen. It wants to bounce around, it wants to roll over, it wants to do... I don't know, actually, that's unfair. It doesn't want to roll over. Oh, we're in it backwards as well, which doesn't help. But what it wants to do is kind of bounce like a lunatic, up and down. And this is even more hilarious from the the cockpit view. But let's go around and just demonstrate that this does actually... Yeah, having it the wrong way around really doesn't help this thing handle. But yeah, as you can see, this does actually, because of its design, not quite enough speed. But it goes up these hills as if they're not even there. So there's something to be said for this sloping wheel design helping to just pull you up. As you can see, it was as if that was not there. All we needed was enough speed. And equally, it's pretty good at going down the other side as well, which you'll find when I demonstrate the other craft, they're not so much. So yeah, that was a few of the different designs, and there's still one thought left that unfortunately I made a bit of a mistake with, basically, so it doesn't work. But I'll explain the concept and then I'll explain why it doesn't work, and this is actually down on this platform down here. But what I was trying to do was create a craft that was designed to hook up to these to keep them stable and in position. So they've all got connectors on them, and you'd want something that would be able to maneuver around, refuel them, refill them, but also, you know, lock them down in place if need be. And hence this thing was born with the landing gear in order to lock it in place and the 3 connectors in the middle. However, the other plan I had was, I'm not sure if some people have seen, certain forklift trucks have the ability to do this with their wheels. And the reason they do that is because it enables them to crab walk sideways, essentially. And there are a couple of other clever ways of doing it, but the most straightforward way is to spin your wheels around. And the clever people will have already noticed the problem: you can't control wheels through rotors. So if I go into the cockpit here, you'll be able to see, as far as the ship is concerned, there are no wheels on this. So while that was, I thought, quite a cool idea to enable this thing to move in very small spaces and very sort of easily, unfortunately it doesn't actually work. Although obviously these things do, and they'd come down and lock you in position when you were hooked onto a ship. So there you go, guys. That's kind of the deal for today. I think some success. This design works very, very well, and I'm going to upload the entire world. So there were some other designs. So we've got this one here that was I don't know what I was trying to do. I was just trying to see what was most efficient. So this, if you look, is using rotors for all the joints, and this was to try and give myself more ground clearance. So down underneath you can see the ground clearance on this is quite a bit better, but if you compare it to that one in front where you can see how low it hangs down in comparison. But again, you with this you don't need to be able to control the rotors through the wheels through the rotors, but what you do need to be able to do is have kind of a bit better option of steering than this thing has, because you have to, you know, it works, but you have to be very good at stopping the rotor in the middle in order to get it to go straight. I don't know, it just feels very, very unnatural. The other thing you should try if you do download the world is this one here. This was the very, very first prototype, and this thing works an absolute charm. It looks tiny, but it works perfectly. Off-road's lovely, probably the best of the lot. Unfortunately, though, it's ugly as anything, and as you can see by its size, there's not really much room to do anything else with it. But it does drive, well, off the edge of the platform apparently, but also pretty damn well. It might even pull itself back up. Look, there you go. That'll give you a prime example of how well this thing handles. So the final bit I'll talk about is just the settings in the wheels, because these are very, very important, and the important ones in particular are strength doesn't seem to matter a huge amount. Damping, friction and power, however, matter a lot. So power is always way too high, and the deal is to try and find a balance of power whereby it is not so much that you're spinning the wheels, which is what happens with most wheeled vehicles and Space Engineers, and I don't know, it causes problems. Friction obviously is exactly what it says it is, however that's what's going to enable you to get up hills, it's what's going to make you turn nicely, but if you have it too high you'll notice the vehicle jumps around a lot as the back wheels aren't being allowed to slide around like they need to. And then finally you've got damping. Now this is on 100% for this, but this dictates like how much give there's going to be in your suspension. So how much is your suspension going to be allowed to move up and down? And with these craft, obviously, having them move up, I can't believe it survived that fall, by the way, what the hell? But having these set up like that does mean that they can, as you can see, like, this thing will go over pretty much anything because it can move its wheels around enough to keep them on the ground a lot. So, a few concepts for you today, nothing particularly groundbreaking, nothing sort of finalised into a proper design. Maybe the very first one I showed you is on those lines. But you get the idea of what I'm working on, and the next thing hopefully you'll see on the channel is a sort of up-to-date, fully I'll use all these tricks version to perhaps turn this thing in front of us here into a little mini mobile base rover thing, perhaps. Something along those lines. So, hope you enjoyed it, guys. Thanks a lot for watching. If you did, please hit like, please hit subscribe, really helps me and the channel out. Remember to go and grab the world off the workshop, because it really is a good laugh just driving around on here. I'm sure if you stick down a few waypoints you could even have a race on it with some friends. I'm certainly going to go back and try my Trackmania track with this stuff as well at some point, because I have a feeling that these things will handle way better than anything I made back then. And otherwise, cheers for watching, guys. I'll catch you next time. Woo!